Cisco works, they're going to have a big long paragraph, right? It's going to say blah, 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 blah.
Ospf.
Blah, blah, blah. You got to know how to read English, okay? What it's going to tell you is, here's your network, okay? And one of Cisco's problems with their test is, it is a reading test. It's kind of like you need to know how to problem solve just by reading it. Just by reading it here, it says, oh, here's my network. I had a baseline prior to this. And my baseline routers happen to be this. And what I mean by baseline is that, hey, these routers were in the network. They were working fine. Okay? Here's your problem. You newly inserted a router number 4. Now nobody sees those routes, and you cannot see anybody else's routes as well. And since this is a single area implementation of Ospf, this is all within area 0. Okay? But this is the baseline. Everything here is correct. So based on what you read here, you already know where the problem is at. Okay? The easiest thing to go about doing this is, again, the problem is people here cannot see you. You cannot see any routes within the routing table. So obviously, if you do a show IP Ospf neighbors, you're not going to get neighbors here. And I'll tell you the truth. Troubleshooting, how long did it take you guys? It took you guys like 15 minutes. It took Alex I think 10 minutes or something like that. Some of you took about 30 minutes or so. Guys, you don't have that much time on the test. Again, it's less than a minute and a half per question, right? So when you got to think about, you got to save up time for something like this. That's why I say some students, who just never finish this test. Instead of debugging and doing all this, show IP protocols, show all these commands, show all this and show that and debug and, try to see what's wrong, sometimes it's just easier to recreate Ospf from scratch. So what I do is I just do a shell run, go down to Ospf, whatever's configured there, I could care less what's configured. I just say no router Ospf, whatever they have configured. I wipe this thing clean. No Ospf configuration whatsoever. Now, my second order of business is to turn on Ospf. So now what you expect to do is show IP interface free. Something that I told you guys to do all week, right? Why am I doing this? Very good. So I can know what this interface is. So I can know what this interface is. So I can just go in there and say, okay, now that I have this up, I know what interfaces have IP information. All you have to do is just say router Ospf 100, whatever you want. Put the network statement of what you see in the show IP interface for network, so-and-so and so with the 000 in area 0, right? Recreate it from scratch. It's a lot easier than just troubleshooting and debugging and all that, okay? Your second thing that you need to check for, go into router 1. You know that this guy has a baseline config. You know that nothing is wrong over here on the network. You're the only one that's wrong. Check to see if he has authentication from this link going here. Okay? And if you don't know what this link is, just do a show CDP neighbors, right? You know that the show CDP neighbors will at least detect what IP address that is, what interface that is. So once you do a show CDP neighbors or whatever, you find out what that interface is. Show run on this interface. If they don't have Ospf authentication, you should automatically get Ospf neighbors here. Okay? Once you do receive neighbors on R4 to R1, okay, all you're going to do is do a show IP route when you see all the routes here. Ping the remote network. Go to R2, click on this guy, and then ping whatever IP address this is. If you can ping back and forth, that basically means you finished troubleshooting. And do not forget, copy run start. Very good. Okay? Because at the end of this guy, they'll say, oh, do a copy, save configuration. If you don't do that, you'll mess up. But again, all I want to tell you guys is identify where the problem is at, recreate Ospf. It is a lot easier to do that than just sit there and show IP protocol, show run, show IP Ospf interface, show this, show that.
So in the test, you'll be able to click on R1 and see the config.
So once you click on R1, what's going to happen is it's going to pop up a hyperterminal. If you click on R3, it's going to pop up a hyperterminal. If you click on R2, it's going to pop up a hyperterminal. Okay. This is why take time to read. Because what some students do, they overcomplicate it. They read and they're like, oh, I got to troubleshoot this whole thing. No, there's always a baseline. These routers are good. You don't need to configure them. The only problem is R4. Okay? Or whatever router is on the bottom right-hand side, I believe.
Just a quick question about how they grade this. Do they just grade